In any city, in any state, leave a window open while you sleep in a residence you call your own. In front of that window, place a table with a game on it. Chess is a popular choice. Checkers would work as well, but the only rule is the game must involve some kind of strategy. Don't think your choice will give you an advantage, though. He knows them all. It may take several days, but eventually you'll find yourself awakened by strange footsteps in the night. Maybe just outside your open window, maybe near the foot of your bed. Do not be alarmed. He doesn't wish to hurt you. In fact, you might be doing him a favor. He doesn't wish to hurt you. In fact, you might be doing him a favor. He just wants to size you up. You may notice his shadow against your wall if he visits when the moon is bright. His form will be odd, but you may make out a high collar around his neck, a tall hat, or the glow of round glasses. Close your eyes. Pretend to be asleep. Do not try and look at him. He stays in the shadows for your sake, not his. If he thinks you're up to it, when you check in the morning, one piece on the board will be moved. His first move. Before you make your move, place a small basket on the table. Put a red cloth in the basket. Then, set on the cloth what you're betting. It must be something of value, though not necessarily expensive. Something you find important, but not necessarily something you're sentimental about. Every day you must make a move, and every night he will make a move. If you lose, the object you bet will go missing, and you will not be visited again. If you win, however, you'll find a new object in the basket. The object will be a collection of intertwined pieces of metal forming a fascinating shape. The moment you pick up the object, and you won't be able to resist picking it up, the pieces will fall apart into a tangled mess. Even that tangled mess will be fascinating, though, and you will be obsessed with trying to return it to the glory you only witnessed for a moment. You must hide this object. Ensure no one will ever see it. They didn't earn it, and they can't be trusted with it. If anyone else glimpses it, even for a second, then we'll beg you for it. Then demand it from you. And if you don't stop them, they'll kill you for it. As you work on the object more and more, know that you'll never solve it. You aren't meant to. But you'll begin to find other puzzles are suddenly easier to solve. Other games are simple to win. This is object 852 of 2538. And it is now your job to create a strategy to ensure they never come together. Here we have James sitting in his home in Georgia, enjoying a nice cup of coffee. It was quite a wonderful morning for the typical life of James. However, something bothered him. You see, every now and then, during the morning and during the evening, he would feel as if someone were watching him. He could not shake this feeling. It just filled him with a sense of melancholy. However, this was not the epitome of unusual things happening to him. No, it was only the beginning. Now, after the random sense of melancholy and feeling of being watched became natural to him, he began hearing the sounds of something dropping, and occasional sounds of something dragging in his home. It didn't make sense to him. He lived alone, so he decided it would be best for him to get out of his house for a few days. He stayed at a motel for a few days. It was quite pleasant for the first few. Everything seemed normal. No feelings of melancholy or being watched. He began feeling at peace with himself and decided that maybe it'd be best for him to go back. Maybe everything is back to normal. Maybe he could enjoy his mornings now. More importantly, he can enjoy his morning cup of coffee. James drove back to his home. But as he drove up to his driveway, he saw 2 police officers standing in front of the door. He immediately ran towards them and shouted, "Hey, what are you doing in front of my house?" "So you live here, sir?" the officer asked. "Yes, this is my home. What are you doing?" The officers looked back at each other, nodded, and walked towards James. As the officers walked towards him, James began to feel dizzy and blacked out. All he heard before he blacked out was a voice in his head saying, "Do it. You know you want to." The title of today's newspaper was about the brutal slaying of 2 police officers and a man on the loose. I know what you do, little girl in blue. You sit home all alone until there's no one but you. I know what you do, little girl in blue. Once you're home all alone, you stir up the rocks. And with this rocks, little girl in blue, you begin to make yourself a flavorful stew. But that's not enough. Not enough for you. For when you need a bit of kick, you take your mother's finger, her pinky finger, and let it boil and toil anew until there's nothing left but disgusting brown sinew. And along with your mother's pinky finger, why, there's surely a dead ringer for the eyeballs and ears of your local classmates and peers. Do they mean something to you, little girl in blue? Do you not feel a twinge of sorrow, your heart breaking in two? No, you say? So it's to be that way. It is difficult to argue in this age, in this day, for were I still among you, little girl in blue, perhaps my words would sing true. Turn around, little girl in blue. Continue on with what I know you are about to do. You are to turn around and face what has your beating heart at haste. As you struggle to figure out that odd sound, well, it's not to be found, not in front of you, or around. If only you were a sightless mole, trapped in a hole, you would know these strange noises come from underground. Tell me, oh tell, poor little girl in the blue, can you not see that we're watching you? You fancy, your nature antsy, that you'd cover up, without care, without skill, your attentions ill, and frolic happily away. Ha! As my new friends have informed me, little girl in blue, no one evades what they have coming, not even cute, doe-eyed things like you. You make me laugh, little girl in blue. Those skinny chicken legs won't carry you all the way through the county, and after that, never once looking back, did you bother to see the 10-foot drop before you? Read this well, read this through, little girl in blue, as it is the only literary pieces for miles and miles around, when you're so far underground. If you go down to a river on a cold winter night that is just at -40 degrees, not more nor less, you will see a flower on the riverside. Pick it up. You'll know instantly if it's not a regular flower. It's going to have pure white petals, so it'll be hard to see, with a red spot in the middle, a black stem with a small gray letter on it. It will tell you the date, though it will be in a language no one's ever seen or heard before. So don't try to decipher it, just yet. If the river is frozen to ice, then cross it while clutching the flower to your heart. If it isn't, then pray for a swift death, for Mother Nature isn't very kind to those who kill one of her offspring without purpose. While you cross it, you must recite the words over and over again until you make it across safely. We are unity. We are legion. We are one. If you do it right, then you will feel a slight burning feel go through your whole body. Though in this winter, it would feel great. When you look back at the flower, you realize that you can read that foreign language now. It's going to tell you the day of your death. And from now till you die, you'll experience changes within you. You'll get stronger, faster, even more than you've ever thought possible. Your appearance will change into a more pale complexion. Your teeth will develop fang-like features. You'll be cast out like a monster from your own people. Your friends and family will spite you. Heaven will turn its eyes from you, as will hell. You will have nowhere else to go but the river from where you've picked the flower. Be sure you return there at the same temperature of -40 degrees. Be sure you bring the flower with you. If you want to stay the way you are, you must shout to the skies, "Praise us, for we are unified." Afterwards, an extremely beautiful creature will appear next to you, with the almost same characteristics as you. This will be your new soulmate, and you will both remain in total matrimony until the day of your death. However, if you don't say anything, but simply walk across the river again, peeling off the flower petals one by one until you cross, you'll feel pain inside you. It'll continue until you cross and pick the last petal off. At last, after what seems like an eternity of pain, you'll look into the reflection, and you return as yourself again. But you'll no longer be allowed to return to that river. All will have complete disdain for you, and you will return to a life of depression and despair until the day of your death. In any city, in any country, go to any petrol station you can get yourself to. Fill up your tank until it's full and pay for it. When the attendant is about to give you your receipt, state as clearly as you possibly can, "Show me the holder of fuel." If the lights flicker, run out of the area and never return, or face the most excruciating death your imagination can create. But if the attendant's face contorts into a look of discomfort, you are momentarily safe. The attendant will then lead you behind the service station and to a car that looks very out of place. It'll be old, rusted, and yet still seem brand new. The attendant will open the car's driver door for you. Get inside as quickly as you can. Wait a few moments. This is your last chance to escape. When you begin to hear a soft lullaby-like music, exit the strange car and return to your own car. Sleep there. You'll wake up at home, in bed, unsure if it was a dream. If you wish to carry on, however, lock the car doors when you hear the music. You hear rustling in the back seat, directly behind you. Don't look. Ask loudly for the thing to hear. What is the fuel that drives us to find them? The thing will then tell you every detail of every seeker's desires, for every object in terrifyingly accurate detail. If he gets to your desires, press down on the horn as hard as you can to block out his speech. He will huff, clearly disappointed he couldn't tell you your own desires. You will then reach forward and place a set of keys into your lap. You will then black out. When you awake, you'll find yourself in your car again. The fuel in your car is once again the same as when you first arrived. In the ignition, however, will not be your keys, but they will be the keys the creature dropped for you. That set of keys is object number 540 of 2,538. There will always be fuel to find them. Your first time is always the most exciting. At least, that's what Scott told me the night before he was arrested. We both knew he was going to prison for a long time, and I guess I was too worked up about his case to realize my skepticism at the time, but thinking back on it, I really didn't believe him. Scott had the type of influence that could have changed the world, and then some. He just had a way with people. It seemed like no matter how bad a situation he'd got himself into, he always found a way to talk his way out of it. And although I'd be lying if I said I didn't miss him to death, it's pretty nice not having my spotlight stolen every 5 seconds. You see, Scott, in addition to being a master manipulator, was also favored by my parents and, well, pretty much my entire family as a whole. I can't really blame them, though. I mean, shit, he had it all. He was handsome, intelligent, and most of all, charismatic. It was no wonder people always thought him the older brother. Apparently there was some serious genetic mutation going on with my parents' DNA during their first attempt at procreation, because I wasn't blessed with any of the traits Scott received. If I had to sum myself up in one word, it'd probably be plain. I was an oh-so-staggering height of 5'6", and physical features that screamed white collar. I always felt like a person that followed Scott around just to make him look better, even more attractive in contrast. As you've probably guessed, I've never been good with people, females in particular. Fortunately, Scott would tell me everything I'd ever need to know. The first time that I was desperate enough to ask for his advice was a little more than 2 years ago. I remember it well because it was the same day I'd gotten jumped in the school parking lot. It was that point in my life when I realized I needed a new hobby, or to meet a new person or something. It finally dawned on me that I might as well ask Scott for advice on the one thing he had more expertise in than anyone else. And after all, I was pretty tired of being a virgin. I was laying on the couch with a bag of ice on my face when I heard someone enter through the side door. I immediately realized it was Scott because it was the same entrance he'd always used after going out at night. He proceeded to take off his shoes, do a double-take, and stare at me, all puzzled. "What the hell? Don't worry about it," I cut him off harshly. "I have something to ask you. Well, a few things," I stated uncomfortably. "Go on, then," he replied hurriedly. "Well, I'd like some advice on..." You can pretty much tell where the conversation went from there. He went on to tell me how much of an art form it was. He explained all the technicalities in extensive detail. It was pretty graphic stuff, but hey, I'd have to learn sometime. By the time the conversation had terminated, it was well past midnight. Well, that about covers the fundamentals. It's getting late, though, bro, so I'm gonna go fall asleep to another one of those terrible free-on-demand movies. Good night, Tyler. Oh, and remember this. Your first time is always the most exciting. I nodded, and then proceeded to embrace sleep. When I woke up the next morning, the police had already arrived, and had Scott in cuffs. I still can't believe I slept through it all. I looked at him, and for the first time, we both knew that there was no way he was talking his way out of this one. Our eyes burned into each other's for what seemed like an eternity. But we never uttered a word to each other. My parents reached for him and cried out in agony, but it was no use. They said their farewells and braced themselves for the grief that would soon follow. I was upset for many weeks after that, and understandably so. I really couldn't seem to get him off my mind. Sleep came in the briefest of moments, comparable to the naps you'd take while listening to a professor's lecture. At least I wasn't alone. My entire family seemed to be in ruin. As tough as things have been for me, time was still behind the scenes, slowly tending to the wounds Scott left in his departure. It was the first week of April, nearly 2 months after the jury's verdict, when I finally decided to use the advice that Scott had given me. I already had someone in mind, a girl by the name of Jennifer. I'd spoken in the coffee shop not too far from where I live. She was a beautiful brunette with blue eyes, the kind that seemed to have the capability of peeking into your soul. Luckily for me, that detail was strictly metaphorical. I actually managed to get her number a few weeks prior, but at the time I wasn't in the mood to pursue her. My desire had practically been lit ablaze since then, due to frustrations of a very explicit nature. So I decided to call her up. Hello?" a curious voice responded. Hey, it's me, Tyler. We met in the coffee shop on Westbourne a few weeks ago. Do you remember me? Oh, black hair, brown eyes? And I think I recall vintage clothing? Nope, doesn't seem to ring a bell. We continued to throw playful jabs at each other until the timing felt right, and the inevitable question popped up. Hey, do you wanna go out tonight? I know a great place. Ricky's not even 45 minutes away, and, even though I'm as low class as they come, I've already managed to get reservations earlier today. You're a little bit ahead of yourself, aren't you? I like that. Sure. Great, I'll pick you up around 6. All right. Don't you need my address, though? Oh, I completely forgot about that. 322 Hickory. I take it someone as respectful as you doesn't need directions. She didn't know how right she was. I arrived at her door looking my absolute best. Suit jacket and everything. You ready to go? Mm-hmm. She smiled and grabbed my arm. I wasn't yet ready to make eye contact, so I didn't. Not for the entire drive. As awkward as it was, I could tell my indifference was driving her crazy. It wasn't even an hour later when she started to seem hesitant. She started asking questions about the location of Ricky's and how close we were. I ignored them all. I could sense a heavy paranoia sprouting in her as our surroundings grew more and more unfamiliar. Anxiousness had finally given way to fear. It was when she asked, "Does this restaurant even exist?" We arrived at our destination. I looked around at the woods that seemed to engulf the tiny sedan. It was dark, eerie. The atmosphere couldn't have been any more fitting for the events which were about to take place. I turned to her and said as coldly as possible, "Ricky's is about as real as your chance of survival." It was the first time and last time I had held her gaze. My brother was right. The first time is always the most exciting.